Hi guys, coming to you at the start of today's podcast, just to say that towards the end of this conversation there is a mention of teen suicide. So if that is something that you feel like you would like to avoid, then please skip over that bit. Enjoy!
You're listening to the Forest School podcast with Lewis Ames and Gemma Southerden.
Hello.
Hello.
Right.
Evening.
Hello. Good evening. It is an evening. Just it's been all of like 3 days since we recorded a podcast.
I know we just have got a lot of gas to get through.
Oh right, yeah.
Out of our windbags.
I thought that was the results of your hospital visit.
Well, that too.
That they just went, you've got a lot of gas. Please, could you podcast more?
Podcast more to let it all out.
Yeah.
Either have some Renees, as my other half calls them, Rennies, equal 18, or just podcast twice as often as you normally would in 1 week.
Yes, although we might not. Anyway, so I wanted to say this thing because it's not been long enough to check in on our themes, I don't think. No. But I have found this cool thing that I want to tell you. So this was found in November 2020, so very, very recently. Yeah. And there is a mushroom called, I'm really bad at sight reading Latin words, Fusarium xerophyllum.
Yeah.
Fusarium xerophyllum. Basically, this is a mushroom that a fungus, and its mushroom looks exactly like a flower with the intention of tricking birds and animals.
Wow.
And it's the first one they've ever found that like is genuinely using, it's not just like dropping spores, it's like this thing is called floral mimicry. It attracts insect pollinators. It has olfactory cues. Just incredible.
Where does it live?
Where does it live? At the end of a mycelium network.
That sounds like a proper joke, like a silly proper joke.
That's as funny as mushroom jokes get.
That is good.
Yeah, I just thought it was cool. The pictures of it are like incredible. I will try and put a link in the show notes. But yeah, it's so cool.
How did you find out about this? Are you subscribed to some kind of special mushroom newspaper?
I mean,
mushroom updates.
Wouldn't it be great now if I said that like I'm real plugged into the worldwide mycelium? Like I feel the vibrations.
Web.
No, it was on Reddit. Which I have to say. So here's the thing. So I had completely forgotten. I went on Reddit this morning and something popped up on the Reddit sub. So they have subreddits on there, and it was our forest school. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I didn't know there was a Reddit forum for forest school. It's mine. I set it up about 3 years ago.
Was there anything on there?
There's like 300 people on there. I just forgotten about it. I set up this little forest school thing that was going on. So if you do use Reddit, have a look because there's a really inactive moderator in a subreddit.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Has anyone said anything apart from being a member?
Oh yeah, loads of people. There's loads of posts on it.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're a Reddity person, go have a look at Reddit.
That's nice.
Yeah. But talk about mushrooms. We talked about gas.
That was the sound of me clapping my hands together and rubbing them together. Like, right, come on, let's get stuck in.
Strap in, guys.
Strap in. I mean, this is going to be like the most entertaining podcast we've ever done. But I would say I'll hold my hands up and say that I was the one that was like pushing to record this podcast. Would you say that's fair, Lewis? Or are you like on board with this too?
Oh, I would say 100%. This is Gemma's little baby, and I am here. I have said my piece about mushrooms and Reddit, and now I should be quiet for 20.
No, you're not going to be quiet. You're going to be. So that's friendship right there, isn't it? Like that's really nice of you.
I trust you. We've trusted each other on things where we go, no. I need. What is it? They have I can't remember what TV show it is. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, when they say, "Oh, I'll do I trust you 1,000 push-ups," and it's like, if I'm wrong, I will do 1,000 push-ups. And so they have this thing of like, oh, if one person says it, then they really mean it. And I feel like we had that where I was like, is this a topic? And you're like, yeah, it will be.
It will
So
be, because
I'm here because I trust you.
it's important. And if you are a listener and you live in the UK, then you can help with this. And that's kind of why I feel like we just need to do like a little rallying call
Yeah,
podcast
and I
thing.
think it's fair to say that I am probably in the majority of people where you start talking about legislation and different papers, and I'm just so scared of saying the wrong thing or showing my ignorance that I sort of shy away from that stuff.
Yeah, I completely know what you mean. And I have been reading quite a lot all day to try to educate my brain. But that's also what I love about doing this podcast, is that you end up kind of learning stuff on purpose for it, which is good.
Yeah.
So enough waffling around the subject. I was trying to remember how I actually got the invite to this thing. But anyway, yesterday we were on a Zoom call with the all-party parliamentary group on a fit and healthy childhood. And it was an open invitation for sort of involved people to sort of chat together and form a coordinated response to the government's plans to reform mental health legislation. So Theresa May put together a green paper, and her government, obviously not just her, in 2017 called Transforming. I'm just going to give the
Transforming children's mental health, isn't it?
Yes, Transforming Children and Young People's Mental Health Provision. And that was the green paper in 2017. And there was a lot of good stuff in there, and kind of like surprisingly good stuff in terms of acknowledging that a lot of young people basically end up at the end of the line, really serious mental health issues, being in hospital, being detained, being prescribed various treatments, and actually, if we're going to reform that, we need to shift the perspective sort of earlier on and look at young children's mental health provision.
It was very prevention focused, wasn't it? Yes. It was like getting in early, getting training in the right places, and kind of, I guess, acknowledging, and lots of people who work in education and social work and stuff will know that quite often you can see either a child or a family where you go, they need help now, but they're not going to qualify for help until this gets a lot worse.
Yeah.
And so this green paper looked more like it was going to be putting stuff in early to stop things spiraling.
Yes. And that's exactly what that green paper said, and kind of proposed a fundamental shift in the support for young people's mental health, with lots of focus being on schools. And so the proposals included incentivising every school and college to have a designated senior lead for mental health. So a bit like you'd have, a SENCO or a safeguarding lead, there is a specific mental health lead, and also funding new mental health support teams, and also ensuring that a member of staff in every primary and secondary school receives mental health awareness training. And I did come across, which I'll put in the show notes, some free mental health training right now for if you're working in a school and you're interested. So you have to be either a qualified teacher or a TA, I believe, and to qualify. And you have to be working in a school. So I was like, I want to do that. But because I'm not working in a school at the moment, I can't. But I'll put the link in the show notes. I don't know what it's like. It may not be great, but at least it's something. So that kind of ties in with the kind of green paper proposals. And it also kind of talks a little bit about treatment for mild to moderate levels of mental health disorder being delivered and by trained but non-clinical staff with adequate supervision. So instead of like waiting till a mental health issue kind of grows and escalates and then it gets to the level of a clinical person to intervene, actually earlier on, non-clinical staff can and should be there to help young people. And so in the meeting yesterday, there was a range of people weren't there attending the meeting.
Do you want me to name drop a little bit?
Go for it.
So, because I was making notes of people as we went past. So just the people who are involved in this conversation are Opal, Outdoor Play and Learning, Play England were there, UK Play Workers Association, some of the guys from Nature Premium were there, Play Scotland, Good Play Guide, National Counselling Society, like some big names.
Yeah.
Were all kind of involved in this conversation, and everyone in the group seemed to be on basically the same page, or at least the same side of the aisle.
Yeah. Absolutely. And weirdly enough, though, even though the Green Paper kind of makes this statement about, trained non-clinical staff being able to help, nowhere, even in the Green Paper, does it mention play therapists, anything to do with nature. The word nature doesn't appear. The word play doesn't appear in that context of play as we sort of are talking about it. So even though they're kind of saying it's a good idea to get more people involved in working with young people to support their mental health early on, they weren't being very specific about that beyond training somebody in school in mental health issues. And so, as you say, everyone in the meeting yesterday was pretty much on the same page and going, what children need is play. There was a lot of discussion about free play without adult supervision, wasn't there? About access to nature, and the amount of evidence now that's been compiled that proves the benefit for mental health for everyone of any age by being in nature is just overwhelming. And the fact that it doesn't even make it into the Green Paper. However, the real kind of drive behind this meeting yesterday was that Green Paper was published in 2017, and it's now the White Paper has now been released.
You want to explain the Green Paper, White Paper thing?
Yeah, so the Green Paper is a sort of document that is open for discussion. It's sort of at its formulative stage. And then the White Paper is the actual proposals for changes to legislation. So the White Paper came out in January, and it's called Reforming the Mental Health Act. So it's a very different document. It really focuses on people who are being detained because of their mental health issues. Talks a lot about autonomy for those people and reforming, the practices that go on. And it was quite harrowing reading. I don't know if you had a look at it, Lewis. Did you see it?
Yeah.
Oh, God. It was like, I am very ignorant when it comes to this kind of stuff. But, the things that struck me, like between 2006 and 2016, the number of detentions rose by 40%.
It's crazy. Yeah.
I just don't even, and that's kind of what the Green Paper was saying, is that most of those people would have suffered mental health problems as children. And perhaps if they had been supported and helped at that stage, it wouldn't have got to that point where they were being detained as an adult. And lots of disparities between different groups of people who become subject to the Mental Health Act, especially Black people who are more likely to be detained. Lots of stuff about learning disabilities and autistic people. Like I was absolutely shocked that in the Green Paper, the White Paper, it says, we propose that neither learning disability nor autism would be considered a mental disorder for which someone can be detained for treatment under Section 3 of the Act. Like, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's a good thing that a sentence like that is in there, but it seems slightly worrying that needs to be said at this point. You kind of, maybe naively, I would have thought that not being detained for a learning disability would have been something that was solved a long time ago. But again, we are where we are.
Crazy. So the all-party parliamentary group are calling for anybody who cares about young people, who works with young people, who's got any kind of stake invested in this issue, to respond to the White Paper and say, this isn't good enough. You're not talking about young people anymore, except for a little paragraph about when they're detained, and to really give our comments about what we think a better mental health provision for young people would look like. And
kind of the importance of it being right now. There was lots of, in this Zoom meeting that we were at, there were lots of talking about saying 1 in 4 teenagers right now is experiencing daily symptoms of depression and anxiety, and if their parents aren't currently working, that doubles. So lots of people were talking about, once this pandemic is sorted with vaccines, we're likely to see a mental health pandemic.
Yeah,
particularly for young people who, we just were talking in our last podcast about how strong the social drive is during sort of preteen and teenage years, and that's all been taken away. And so we need to be kind of not just going, right, the schools are open. I saw I've had to stop looking at it because one of the conversations that's going on at the moment in our government is how will children catch up, and they're talking about longer school days. They're talking about coming in on Saturdays, or just how will they cram the curriculum back in rather than looking at it in any sort of holistic way and going, what support will people need when they come back? They're just going, how will we catch up and pretend this never happened? Which is going to be, it's going to be so damaging. There's no two ways about it. That is going to be a damaging approach.
Yeah, there was that guy on the call yesterday from an organisation called Kick, who do a lot of work with, physical exercise with children and young people, and he was saying how a lot of schools' halls at the moment have been requisitioned, is that the right word?
Repurposed, maybe?
Repurposed for like extra catch up for English and maths. So we can't do any like indoor PE now because we need to cram these kids full of English and maths. So this year that's happened. And physical exercise being reduced, going outside being reduced, and in a way you can understand it. The schools are facing a lot of challenges with social distancing and staffing and things like that. But that has got to be the priority as well, hasn't it? And even just anecdotally, we've had people that we know, their forest, even if they're still working in school as a forest school leader, they are no longer doing forest school, or they're not allowed to do their trips anymore. They used to do their weekly walk to the local woodland, and now they're not doing that anymore. They're just not going out, which just seems, maybe it is a staffing issue, I don't know, but it's almost like the opposite needs to happen. You need to be getting out more rather than less.
Yeah. But I think it's important, and I tried to make this point in the meeting, that, like I said, everybody in that meeting was on the same side of the aisle. And I think 99% of people listening to this are also going to be there listening to this and going, yeah, play. And hopefully you guys already know about play, and about the importance of kind of some autonomy in children's lives, and that their mental health is important. But just standing up and saying that they need it isn't enough. We need to be kind of going, why isn't it happening? What are the barriers? Yeah. It doesn't happen if we all just stand up and shout at children that they need to do more playing. Mm-hmm. What we need to be thinking about is, how do you put that stuff in place? And to be honest, having this training put into schools would mean that you'd have someone like a safeguarding officer who could see stuff going on and going, there's some signs of mental health, concerns coming up here in this 6-year-old. Maybe they need some stuff, or how can you help teachers set up their classrooms in different ways, or structure the day? It just kind of makes it a priority, or more of a priority, rather than just being this fringe thing that we're going to keep shouting out into the void while the government focuses on the 3 R's,
Absolutely. And there was another person on the call who was talking about how sort of grassroots organisations, like play organisations, play therapists, and I guess, what Forest School is that's a grassroots organisation that is working with children, have all disappeared, and the funding for those things has all gone and all been pumped into things like Early Help, who are just there to signpost. So there's all this funding for people signposting, going, oh, okay, I hear what you're saying, I hear what you're telling me about your mental health or your child's mental health. So I am paid to signpost you to read this document, or to go and talk to this person, or go and talk to that person. And actually, funding may be far better spent on the ground with those people who are literally working in the community for children's benefit. It's really school focused as well, the green paper, which is understandable, but it's like schools are being asked to do so much now, aren't they? Like, it's like they are responsible for children's diet, for literally feeding a lot of children, as well as getting them to jump through all these sort of academic hoops. And this is like another thing, and like quite rightly, and also it's quite interesting that in one of the papers, I can't remember which one, it was the green paper, saying that schools are the right place to be addressing children's mental health, and part of the reason was, it said that the school environment may be a trigger for some children and increase their mental health issues. Therefore, it's the perfect place to deal with that. I was like, that's a weird sentence.
Yeah, I remember when you book in for therapy now, the therapist will often wear a scary clown mask just so that you're really on edge, because that's the best way to deal with your trauma. You can have vertigo therapy at the top of a building now. It's a real solid piece of logic there.
Crazy, isn't it?
But so the kind of, I think the frustration for a lot of people was that this green paper existed and looked by no means perfect, but looked very positive, And then what you would expect to see is that the green paper gets discussed, maybe some bits slightly get tweaked, get changed, and then it comes out as a white paper. At least that's my understanding. And the white paper that they've produced in this January seems to be, a completely different paper. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with what looked like it was going to be quite a positive and effective document.
Yeah. There's nothing about prevention in there at all. It's literally about the end of the line stuff.
Yeah.
So, the all-party parliamentary group are calling for, as I said, people to have a look at the green paper and the white paper, and we can put links to those on there. And then there's a list of the people to email your responses to. And they're also saying to, in some way, make your response public. So if you are on Twitter, if you're on Facebook or whatever, publicise what you've said. Write a little summary, draw people's attention to it, ask other people to feedback as well. Even if it's just as simple as going, this bit in the green paper is good, why haven't you kept it? But also, blah, 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 and just do a lovely vomit. Just do a lovely vomit for them about play and nature, and quote some research if you can be bothered, or some stuff about your own personal experience. You can do it as a personal sort of response, or on behalf of a school or an organisation if you work for one of those. The other interesting thing that they were talking about was how COVID obviously has had a huge impact on people's mental health, but also the government are kind of using that in terms of, well, if it's not to do with COVID, then we're not going to really talk about it. People's mental health is being affected by lockdown and being affected by COVID themselves or somebody they know being ill. So once we've sorted that out and the vaccine happens and lockdown is over, then ta-da, it's all fine. It's like, well, no, if admissions to, if detention in mental health institutions increased by 40% in 10 years, and that was up to 2016, we already had a massive problem before COVID. So obviously it's only going to get worse, but to just kind of hide behind COVID and go, well, look, ta-da, we've fixed it now because we've got rid of the virus or we've managed the virus sufficiently, is a cop-out, and we can't let them get away with it.
And look, there'll be lots of people listening to this who work with children, and there'll be, I imagine, a lot of people who are parents listening to this. And one of the most, I apologize, this is a difficult thing to talk about, but one of the people in this Zoom meeting was saying that the least vulnerable group to COVID in terms of being teenagers, young people, are the most vulnerable to mental health. And that for teenagers now, the leading cause of death is suicide. Yeah. That is the biggest killer of teenage people in this country. So that fact alone should be enough for us to go, we need better support than this to tackle the biggest killer of young people. Yeah. That's, a crime to have not included in any government document.
Yeah.
So not just if you are a play worker and this annoys you, because, we all like to stand behind our little flag and our banner and go, hey, nature play, hey, forest school, hey, outdoor exercise. But everybody knows a teenager. Everybody knows a parent. Everybody should be writing in and saying that this document isn't okay. It isn't up to task. It's not going to do what it needs to do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. And I think that is it. I don't have anything else to say. Do you?
Do you have the information to hand, or that people need to send their emails to?
Yes, the deadline is the 26th of February. So get on it, folks. And let me find. I think it's quite a long email address. So can we put it in the show notes?
Absolutely. We'll put all the information in the show notes and put it in all the posts about this.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to us. We will now climb down off of our soapboxes.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye. If you like this podcast and want to support more episodes, you can donate through Patreon. Visit patreon.com/Children of the Forest to show your support for the Forest School podcast.